Darkness enveloped the vast expanse of the desert, the only sound the wind's mournful sigh. Kale's boots crunched through the fine sand, her eyes fixed on the figure ahead. The individual in question was cloaked in shadows, the darkness of the night only intensifying the aura of malevolence surrounding them. A cold dread crept up the back of her neck as they finally emerged into view. Jaren, the man who had been her ally for what felt like an eternity, his piercing green eyes glinting like jade in the faint moonlight. Yet there was something off about him, something that sent a shiver down Kale's spine. "What brings you here, Jaren?" Kale asked, trying to hide the wariness creeping into her voice. "It can't be ignored," Jaren said, his voice low and husky. "The whispers are growing louder, the dissent spreading like wildfire. Our people are starting to ask questions, to wonder if the words spoken by our young Ariana hold any truth." Kale's grip on her sword tightened. "You're stirring up trouble, Jaren." Jaren shrugged, his movements fluid and calculated. "Perhaps, but know this: the foundation we've built is fragile, Kale. A whispered lie can shatter the entire edifice in an instant. It's a risk others are willing to take, but I'm not sure you are." Ariana's prophetic words had sparked a chain reaction, like a stone cast into a still pond, sending ripples across their world. At first they dismissed the concerns as mere paranoia, but now the doubts had begun to seep into the hearts of their followers. Kale knew that if Jaren's words were true, she might lose her ally, her friend, for good. "You're talking about the rebellion, aren't you?" Kale asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jaren nodded, his eyes glinting like ice. "The seeds of dissent are already being sown, Kale. It's a matter of time before the entire framework we've built comes crashing down." A cold sweat broke out on Kale's forehead. She'd known this war was never going to be easy, but to hear Jaren's words, phrases that resonated with her own growing fears, it was like a punch to the gut. "Then tell me, Jaren," Kale said, her voice drenched with pain. "What do you propose we do about it?" For a moment she thought she'd misread Jaren's intentions. He looked to her as if expecting a different person, a person willing to bend and break their principles for the sake of maintaining their fragile, crumbling world. But then, a hint of a smile curled on his lips, and Kale knew that Jaren's true concerns were far from being about the rebellion. It was about something much darker, something that threatened to destroy everything they both stood for. "You want to know my answer?" Jaren asked, a sinister glint re-emerging in his eyes. His voice dropped to a barely audible whisper, and Kale felt a shiver run down her spine as Jaren moved closer. "I think we're running out of time, Kale," Jaren said, his words heavy with an unspoken meaning. "Time before our people realize the truth, before the whispers turn to shouts, and before our world is torn apart by the very thing we were created to preserve." Kale's grip on her sword tightened, and she felt a surge of anger and frustration. She'd given her entire existence to this people, to the hope that they were better than the darkness that lurked in every corner of this twisted world. "What truth?" Kale demanded, her voice firm but laced with unease. Jaren's smile grew wider, and for a moment Kale thought she saw something ancient and malevolent lurking behind his eyes. "The truth about our existence," Jaren said, his voice dripping with a sweet, honey-like quality. "The truth about who we are, why we were made, and what our purpose truly is." A chill ran down Kale's spine as Jaren's words echoed in her mind. She knew that she'd always suspected that there was more to their world than the simplistic framework of good and evil that they'd been taught. But she'd never dared to question it, never dared to dream of a truth that might shatter the foundations of her reality. As Jaren took another step closer, Kale knew that she stood on the brink of a precipice from which there was no return. "You're talking about the prophecy," Kale said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one that speaks of a great and terrible fate, one that will decide the course of our world forever." Jaren's eyes glinted like diamonds in the moonlight, and he nodded. "The one and only," Jaren said, his voice dripping with a sense of inevitability. "The prophecy that speaks of a great and terrible fate, one that will decide the course of our world forever." Kale felt a cold dread creeping up the back of her neck as Jaren's words hung in the air like a challenge. "What do you know of it?" Kale asked, her voice laced with desperation. Jaren's smile grew wider and he leaned in close, his voice like a whisper in Kale's ear. "I know that it's already begun," Jaren said, his words echoing in Kale's mind like a refrain of doom. "Tell me," Kale replied, a sense of foreboding settling in the pit of her stomach. Jaren paused, his gaze drifting into the darkness as if seeking some unseen advice. Kale waited, her grip on her sword reassuring yet the metal feeling cold and heavy in her hand. "Then join me," Jaren finished, his voice low and husky, the words sending a shiver down Kale's spine. "Let us shred the foundations of this world and from the ashes create something new, something we can truly believe in." Kale felt like a blade to Jaren's heart, the pain of betrayal and fear mingling together in a cauldron of anguish. She took a step back, her eyes never leaving Jaren's face, the air thick with tension. "I'll never betray our people, Jaren," Kale spat, her voice barely above a whisper. "My oath is to protect Ariana and our world no matter the cost." Jaren's smile grew, stretching across his face like a gruesome grin. "Ah, Kale," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You really do believe that, do you? That our world is worth preserving no matter the suffering, no matter the lies?" Kale's eyes narrowed, her grip on her sword tightening. "We have to protect it," she repeated, her voice steady. "I know," Jaren said, his voice a low rumble, and for a moment Kale thought she saw something flicker in his eyes, a glimmer of the person she once knew. But the moment passed, and Jaren's gaze snapped back to hers, like a cold metal rod. "But what if there's no choice, Kale?" he asked, his voice husky like a flame about to ignite. "What if the only way to protect our world is to bring it crashing down?" Kale's mind reeled, her thoughts racing with possibilities. Could Jaren's words be true? Was there a hidden enemy among them, someone who would stop at nothing to destroy their world? A hesitation crept into Kale's demeanor, and for a moment Jaren thought he had her. But Kale's eyes snapped back to hers, a fierce determination burning like a fire. "I'll never betray Ariana," Kale repeated, her voice firm, though she was no longer sure if she was protecting Ariana or herself. Jaren's smile grew, spreading across his face like a sunrise. "I knew you would say that," he said, his voice low, seductive. "You're a true believer, Kale, but you're also a fool." And with that, Jaren turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving Kale feeling like she'd been punched to the gut. The silence that followed was oppressive, like a weight crushing down on her shoulders. Kale's heart felt heavy, like a burden she couldn't shake. She turned away, her eyes fixed on the horizon, and began to walk, leaving Jaren's words echoing in her mind. The stars above glimmered like ice chips in a cold lake, their light distant and unattainable. Kale felt lost and alone, her heart heavy with the weight of her own doubts. She knew that Jaren had changed, had become something he was no longer, but she didn't know if she could stop him. All she could do was keep walking into the unknown with her doubts eating away at her. "What is that vision we see when the stars are at their brightest, Kale?" Jaren asked, his voice a low, whispery thing that sent a shiver down her spine. Kale's grip on her sword tightened. She knew that look, that tone. It was the same one Jaren used when he was ready to reveal a dark, ancient secret that had haunted the edges of their world for centuries. Ariana's words echoed in her mind. "From the depths of space, a darkness comes, one that has long been thought to be nothing more than myth." Kale had always dismissed the stories as mere fantasy, but Jaren's gaze told her that he knew better. "The starfall," Jaren whispered, the word tasting like poison on his lips. "Legend has it that during the celestial event, the fabric of reality is at its most fragile. Some believe that's when the gods departed, leaving our world to its own devices." Kale felt a chill run down her spine. She knew that Jaren was hinting at something far more sinister. "Or," Jaren continued, his voice dripping with malice, "it's when our greatest enemy, the being known only as the Devourer, comes into being. According to some, the starfall is his birth, and every time it occurs, the balance between worlds is disrupted, drawing all things into the void." Ariana's words swirled in her mind like a tornado, threatening to consume everything she thought she knew about the universe. "You're saying that the rebellion is forced by the very fabric of reality itself?" Kale asked, her mind reeling at the thought. Jaren nodded, his smile wider now, revealing a hint of gold beneath his teeth. "If so, Kale, then we have two choices: to succumb to madness or to blindly march towards the abyss or to find another path, one that's been sought by our ancient forebears but was lost to the sands of time." Kale's thoughts swirled, questioning her own convictions. Had their entire struggle been in vain? Had all the sacrifices and battles been a farce? And then it hit her, a cold, icy truth that crushed the last vestiges of her hope. "I know what I need to do," Kale said, her voice crushing the silence between them. Jaren's eyes narrowed, his grip on the shadows around him tightening. "What do you mean?" he asked, a measured tone in his voice. With a solemn resolve burning within her, Kale forged a path that would take her to the farthest reaches of the land to confront the dreadful truth head-on. "Tomorrow, before the sun rises," Kale said, "I'll be ready. I'll meet the darkness and I'll face it head-on. I'll uncover the truth or I'll risk dying." The air thickened with tension, an air heavy with foreboding. He took a step closer to Kale, his movements fluid and calculated, as if sizing her up for a fight. "The answer, Kale, is that I'll do whatever it takes to protect this world, no matter the cost." Mist crept across the ruined city, tendrils of damp air clinging to crumbling edifices and overgrown rubble. Kale stood before a smoking ruin, her eyes fixed on the dark figure emerging from the depths, a figure that bore no resemblance to the man she had once called friend. "This isn't you," Karen spat, the blade in her hand trembling with rage. Jaren's smile, his eyes had vanished in an instant, replaced by an implacable gaze that cut deep. No, it was the same coldness, a recognition that left Kale drained. "Those words shared by our young Ariana, they whispered enough of a recipe," Jaren began, voice smooth and clear. "Our hearts were always on the line, however thin the excuse, but they also were reminders that our bond is already in pieces." Kale's mind faltered, processing the unyielding determination in Jaren's voice. A man with intent was no friend. "Rebellion," Karen seethed, "and rebellion only equals war. It's an existence neither of us can live, neither of us can lead." Jaren's voice dropped to a whispered chuckle. "For love or to crush hearts? The pain echoes within our own heart," Kale replied, voice so quiet as to be unheard. "Yet for how long can such divisions survive?" "I wouldn't claim this war was my will," Jaren said, eyes no longer shadowy but glinting like a springtime morning when rain seems unlikely. They twisted their words to blind minds, even us. Yet there were plenty who questioned every word. There was understanding that our voices went unheeded. "No love ever shines pure beyond lies," Kale said, pain twisting her words.